year over year. I will say this, the WNBA on ESPN networks only being up 16% year over year. Well, no wonder why they're only bragging about the Indiana Fever games on ABC and ESPN.
4 million people. That's not a typo. That's a peak viewership number for a regular season WNBA game in 2025, and it just shattered every cable record the league's ever set. But here's what makes this actually interesting. The network barely promoted her.
Ever. And when we take a look, this current season, the most viewed WNBA games, you have the Atlanta Dream versus the Indiana Fever, the Chicago Sky versus the Fever, the Lynx versus the Fever, the Wings versus the Fever, and the New York Liberty versus the Fever. It's about time that the Indiana Fever dragged the Atlanta Dream to this top 5 list.
Look at that top 5. Every single game has one thing in common, and it's not the league's marketing budget. It's one player dragging entire franchises into prime time, whether the broadcasters want to admit it or not. The Atlanta Dream just got pulled into the most watched cable game in WNBA history, and they're sitting at the bottom of the standings. That's not normal. That's not how sports television works unless something else is happening.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark is the needle. Let's take a look at this article, shall we? WNBA Fever Dreams continue with new viewership records on ESPN and ION. Another weekend, another set of viewership milestones for the WNBA. Sunday's Fever Dream WNBA regular season game averaged 2.58 million viewers on ESPN, marking the largest WNBA audience of any kind on cable. The previous high was 2.54 million.
12 games. Since the year 2000, the WNBA has had 12 games crack its all-time viewership records. Every single one of them happened in the last 3 seasons. Every single one involved Caitlin Clark. 9 of them were Indiana Fever games. 2 were All-Star games she played in. 1 was the draft where she got selected. The All-Star game she didn't play in didn't make the list. That's a 25-year sample size with 1 name attached to every peak, and yet you'll still hear people argue she's not the reason the numbers look like this.
Caitlin Clark, the one that stirs the drink. That is the WNBA, the face of the league, no doubt about it. The WNBA, they may not want to promote her. ION might not want to promote her. NBC may not want to promote her. ESPN may not want to promote her. USA Sports may not want to promote her. But the fans have spoken, and they seem to know whether you guys want to promote her or not. They seem to know when Caitlin Clark's playing, what time, and where.
Now that 16% number is the part nobody's talking about, and it's the part that actually matters. ESPN's overall WNBA viewership is only up 16% year over year, not the 50 or 60% you'd expect if the whole league was rising together. That means the Caitlin Clark games are absolutely exploding, and everything else is doing roughly what it did last year, maybe a little better from the spillover. The rising tide theory only works if the tide is actually rising everywhere. This isn't a tide. This is one boat with a rocket strapped to it, and the rest of the harbor is watching.
Higher to be fair. With the WNBA soon to pause for a 3-week break for the FIBA World Championships and the pro and college football season is about to start, ESPN has only 1 more regular season night after Tuesday, and it's more than a month away on September 22nd. This is an interesting point, because they're about to go for a 3-week break on the FIBA World Cup Championships. There's a lot of momentum right now in the WNBA.
The previous record for a cable game was 2.5 million. That was a playoff game. Indiana versus Connecticut, first round. Caitlin Clark's rookie playoff run. A regular season game just beat a playoff game. In most leagues, playoff intensity drives the biggest audiences. Here, a Sunday afternoon game in late August with a sub-500 team drew more viewers than the postseason did. The only explanation is that people are tuning in for the player, not the stakes.
Averaged 1.62 million viewers on ION last Friday night, marking the largest WNBA audience ever on that network, which began airing games in 2023. That's a big number. Paige and Clark on ION getting 1.62 million viewers. That is a huge, huge number. Yet they will still look you dead in your face and say Caitlin Clark isn't the reason why the ratings are as high as they are, the attendance isn't as high as it is, and the ladies got paid what they're getting paid now. They'll look you dead in their face and say it's not because of Caitlin Clark.
Ion TV is not a major network. It's not ESPN. It's not ABC. It's not TNT. It started airing WNBA games in 2023, so it has less than 2 full seasons of history with the league. A Fever Wings game on Ion just pulled 1.62 million viewers. That's the biggest audience that network has ever delivered for the WNBA, and it's bigger than most of the games on the major networks that don't involve Indiana. A smaller platform with a fraction of the reach is setting records because of one team's schedule. That tells you the audience is hunting for specific games, not stumbling onto them.
And for Fever Sun, Game 2 in the first round of the 24 playoffs, Caitlin Clark's most recent playoff run. Indiana's win, which peaked with 4 million viewers in the 7:15 p.m. quarter hour, so what's that, the fourth quarter? Was the 8th game this season to average at least 2.4.
Here's the part that should bother you. The league, the networks, the broadcasters, they're still hedging. They'll report the numbers, they'll celebrate the records, but they won't say her name in the headline. They won't build the campaign around her. The fans already did that work for them. The fans figured out the schedule, they set reminders, they told their friends, they made Caitlin Clark the face of the league from the ground up. The institutions are just catching the wave they didn't create and didn't see coming.
ESPN delivered its most watched WNBA game ever. Atlanta Dream Indiana Fever averaged 2.6 million views with a peak of 4 million viewers. A 4 million viewed peak. I don't think if I've seen that yet in a WNBA regular season matchup during the Caitlin Clark era. I'm not sure if it's occurred before, but in the Caitlin Clark era, a 4 million peak? Outside the All-Star game, I'm not sure if I've seen a number get that high as of yet.
Sunday's game peaked at 4 million in the 7:15 p.m. quarter hour. That's the fourth quarter. People didn't tune in at the start and leave. They stayed, and more people joined as the game went on. That's not casual viewership. That's appointment television. The game averaged 2.58 million, which means millions of people were locked in for the full 60 minutes, not just checking the highlights later. For context, the 8 games this season that averaged at least 2.4 million viewers, that's more than the previous 25 seasons combined, times 2. 25 years of WNBA basketball produced fewer massive games than 3 months of Caitlin Clark did.
But still, 2 million viewers. 2.4 this year is probably like 2.1 last year. Probably like a high 1.9 last year. So the numbers are still fairly high. Overall, the 12 largest WNBA audience since 2000 have occurred in the past 3 seasons, each involving Caitlin Clark. One more time. The 12 largest WNBA audience since 2000 have occurred in the past 3 seasons, each involving Caitlin Clark.
The league is about to go dark for 3 weeks. FIBA World Cup break, international competition, and then the college football and NFL seasons start eating up all the oxygen in the sports media landscape. The Fever are on a 5-game winning streak. Caitlin Clark is in the middle of what people are calling an MVP run. The momentum is real, the numbers are real, and now it all stops for 21 days. The question isn't whether the league comes back, it's whether the audience does. Momentum in sports is fragile. You can't pause it and expect it to be there when you come back, especially when you're competing with football season.
A 4 million viewed peak. I don't think if I've seen that yet in a WNBA regular season matchup during the Caitlin Clark era. I'm not sure if it's occurred before, but in the Caitlin Clark era, a 4 million peak? Outside the All-Star game, I'm not sure if I've seen a number get that high as of yet.
Let's talk about what 4 million actually means. The NBA regular season averages around 1.5 to 2 million viewers for most national games. The WNBA just hit 4 million for a peak and 2.6 million average with a rookie in her first full season. That's not a women's sports story. That's a sports story. The baseline has shifted, and it shifted because one player changed what people expect to see when they turn on a WNBA game. She's not just good, she's must-see in a league that's never had must-see regular season television before.
Making it the largest WNBA regular season audience ever on ESPN that did not involve the Clark era Fever. The lead-in from Caitlin Clark's game against the Atlanta Dream was so large, so many people forgot to change the channel after, that it was the highest game ever on ESPN in the non-Caitlin Clark, that didn't involve Caitlin Clark or the Indiana Fever. The ESPN family of networks, including ABC, were averaging 1.4 million viewers for WNBA games entering Tuesday's doubleheader, up 16% from last year, which I thought would be.
Here's the money part. Attendance, ratings, and revenue all move together. The Fever sold out nearly every home game this season. Road arenas are selling out when Indiana comes to town. The viewership records are piling up every week. The league just signed new media deals that are exponentially larger than the old ones, and those deals were negotiated with Caitlin Clark's rookie season as the proof of concept. The players just got a new CBA with higher salaries, better travel, improved conditions. None of that happens without the revenue spike, and the revenue spike doesn't happen without the ratings. The ratings don't happen without the player who's in all 12 of the biggest games in 25 years.
I was starting to think that the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, as far as a matchup people want to see on TV, I was starting to think that that lost its luster. And though it has definitely lost some of its luster, clearly it's still a game that people want to see. They also know that Caitlin Clark's been balling. She's on her MVP run, so I'm sure that helped people want to tune into the game. And I know everybody was calling their friends.
The Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever matchup made that top 5 list. That's the Angel Reese rivalry angle, the college storyline that carried over into the pros, and it worked for a while. It drove real numbers, but the Atlanta Dream making this list tells you something different. There's no rivalry there. There's no built-in narrative. The Dream are in rebuild mode. They're not a playoff team, and they still got dragged to the most watched cable game ever because they happened to be on the schedule opposite Caitlin Clark on a Sunday afternoon. That's pure star power. That's people tuning in to watch one player regardless of the opponent, regardless of the stakes, regardless of the storyline. That's what transcendent looks like.
Especially with the Indiana Fever, the playoff, the MVP run, Sophie Cunningham, there's a lot of momentum in the WNBA right now. The question is, will any of this momentum slow down with the 3-week break coming up? Apologize if you can hear that. My neighbor's getting their trees cut. Good grief. ESPN was not the only network to set a record for a Fever game last week. Indiana's previous game against Dallas averaged 1.62 million viewers on ION last Friday night, marking the largest WNBA audience ever on that network, which began airing games in 2023. That's a big number. Paige and Clark on ION getting 1.62 million viewers. That is a huge, huge number. Yet they will still look you dead in your face and say Caitlin Clark isn't the reason why the ratings are as high as they are, the attendance isn't as high as it is, and the ladies got paid what they're getting paid now. They'll look you dead in their face and say it's not because of Caitlin Clark. Yeah, right. Let me know your thoughts.
Now let's address the elephant in the room. There are people who will look at these numbers and say it's not fair to give one player all the credit. They'll say the league was growing anyway, that the investment was already happening, that other stars deserve recognition too. And sure, the league has other talented players, but the data doesn't lie. The 12 biggest audiences in a quarter century all have one name attached. The games without her are doing 16% better than last year. The games with her are doing 178% better. That's not a rising tide. That's not league-wide growth. That's one player bending the entire curve, and pretending otherwise is just ignoring what the numbers are screaming at you. The Fever weren't a ratings draw before this season. Indiana was a mid-market team with a loyal local fan base and no national television appeal. Now they're appointment viewing. The difference is one draft pick, one player who came in with a college following so large that it forced the professional league to pay attention. She didn't just bring her fans with her, she brought casual sports fans who'd never watched a WNBA game before. She brought people who wanted to see if the hype was real, and then she kept them because the performance matched the billing.
You won't believe how bad Angel Reese is playing today. Yeah, she was wide open. Yeah, oh, you were wide. She was wide open. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm sure some of that went down as well. Because once it starts going viral on Twitter, it really just takes like, oh damn, she missed that. Let me check it out. Oh, whoa, damn, whoa. You start dodging shots that she's throwing up.
Go back to that clip, the neighbors getting their trees cut. He's apologizing for the noise, and he's still breaking down the numbers because the numbers are that absurd. ION TV, a network most people couldn't find on their cable guide 6 months ago, just delivered 1.6 million viewers for a Fever game. That's bigger than some of the playoff games from previous years. That's bigger than marquee matchups on major networks. A Friday night game on a secondary platform is now must-see TV, and the only reason that's true is because people know when Caitlin Clark is playing, and they'll find the game no matter where it's airing. The league's schedule makers are learning this in real time. You want a big number? Put the Fever on. You want to set a record for your network? Put the Fever on. You want to boost a struggling franchise's visibility? Put them on the schedule against Indiana. It's that simple, and it's that stark. The Atlanta Dream just got more national exposure from one game than they've had in the last 3 seasons combined, and all they had to do was show up on the same court. So here's the question the league has to answer, and they have 3 weeks to think about it while they're on break. Are you going to build around this, or are you going to keep pretending it's a collective effort because the fans already made their choice? The ratings already told you what the audience wants. The only question left is whether the people running the league are willing to admit what's actually happening and structure the next 5 years around it, or whether they're going to keep trying to spread the credit around and hope the momentum doesn't disappear when football takes over the fall. The Fever come back in late September. By then, the NFL will be in full swing, college football will own Saturdays, and the sports calendar will be as crowded as it gets. If the audience is still there, if the ratings hold, if the momentum survives a 3-week break and a head-to-head battle with football season, then you'll know this isn't a fluke. You'll know it's real. And if the league still won't say her name after that, then you'll know they're not serious about keeping it going. What do you think? Does the WNBA actually promote Caitlin Clark the way these numbers say they should? Or are they still trying to pretend this is a team effort? Drop your take in the comments, and if you made it this far, hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.